Commissioners, staff, and members of the public, both online and present. I'm going to start. Please.
Commissioner Benson?
Present.
Commissioner Freitas?
Present.
Commissioner Kraft?
Present.
Commissioner Lazar?
Present.
And Commissioner Meyer. Thank you.
Commissioner Freitas is going to lead us in the salute to the flag. Okay, we have meeting minutes of both May 9th and May 31st, the special Planning Commission meeting minutes. And so I'd like to have commissioners either propose a motion to accept those or propose changes.
I would move acceptance of both sets of minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'd be happy to second. I wanted to recommend a change in the cannabis item. I think it's the Cannabis Code Update Part C. So with the distinction being, it seemed like it was saying direct staff to forward the amendment to the Coastal Commission with additional recommend. The amendment being, well, it seemed like it wasn't clear that we were in our recommendation to the commission or to the council. We were recommending they consider the cottage industry infusion and to work with staff on that. So it somehow in the construction of the minutes got a little garbled, I thought. So I guess I would just say that, should I just maybe try to take a stab at correcting it? So it says, Commissioner Lazar moved, seconded by Commissioner Kraft, to find the proposed text in local coastal program and forward a recommendation to the City Council that they adopt the text and local coastal program amendments and consider directing staff to include provisions authorizing the infusion use or license type as an activity wherever, and direct staff to forward the amendment to the Coastal Commission. Now that I'm reading it, it reads just great. So I'm just going to, we'll just go back in time and forget I didn't say that. Yes, I second.
Any further amendments or revisions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? None. Motion carries. Okay, oral communications. This is a section provides commissioners and the general public an opportunity to address the commission based on any subject not appearing on the agenda. Anybody like to address the commission on anything not related to the agenda, tonight's agenda? Commissioners, none. Anyone in the general public? Online general public? Seeing none, we'll move on then to public hearings. Item E2, the Pearson Properties General Plan Map Amendment and Zone Reclassification. Do we have a presentation by staff tonight on that?
Yes, I'll be presenting.
Okay, thank you so much. Go ahead.
I'm second guessing myself. Okay. We're seeing the presentation and not my note slides, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, good evening, commissioners. Caitlin Castellano, senior planner assigned to this project. Today, I'm going to present the Pearson Properties General Plan Map Amendment and Zone Reclassification to change the land use designation and zoning of a vacant 0.21 acre parcel on West Harris Street, west of the Eureka Mall. So here's a bird's eye view of the subject property showing some of the city limit boundaries in yellow and black. Zooming in, the property is located at the northwest corner of West Harris and Fairfield Streets, and it is adjacent to several parcels owned by Pearson Properties in purple, one of which houses their office, main office, where the yellow circle is. So zooming in even more, it's west of Fairfield Street, you see right there. It's north of West Harris Street and northwest of Glen Street. And then if you see my little cursor mouse, that's the office that I pointed out. Well, maybe I guess it's not coming up on the screen. So here's a street view looking northeast from West Harris Street. And here's another street view looking northwest from West Harris Street. So you see Fairfield Street is on your right on that bottom picture. And this site is relatively flat, as you can see. On April 5th of this year, the City Council approved the Pearson Properties General Plan Amendment Petition, which enabled them to apply for this general plan map amendment and zone reclassification for the subject property, which is before you now. The proposed project is to change the general planned land use designation from medium density residential, MDR in yellow, to general commercial, GC in orange, which will extend the existing general commercial designated lands to the east by 1 parcel. The land use change would then require the site be rezoned from residential medium R2 to service commercial SC in red. According to the applicant, the intended use of the property is a mixed use development with multifamily residential units and a commercial space. The proposed change will also facilitate the relocation of Pearson Properties main office from 1200 West Harris Street, which is where the yellow star is that I also pointed out in the earlier aerial images, excuse me, and move it to the subject parcel in order to allow the parcel that the yellow star was on, where their current office is located, so they could convey that parcel as well as the rest of the parcels that were in purple that you saw earlier to the city for housing. So what does this do? The land use designation and zoning changes will allow for higher density multifamily housing than currently allowed, and will allow for a commercial business use generally prohibited by the current R2 zoning. The current MDR R2 designations allow housing density at 22 dwelling units per acre, not including ADUs, and the R2 zoning allows very limited commercial uses such as a daycare facility or home occupations. For example, the 0.21 acre lot, which converts to approximately 9,148 square feet, is allowed up to 5 dwelling units and 2 ADUs and no commercial office uses. Alternatively, the GCSC designations, the general commercial, service commercial, regulates housing density by a maximum floor area ratio and not the dwelling units per acre. So the maximum floor area ratio, known as a FAR. So for this site, it is 2.5, the maximum FAR, and would allow a wide variety of commercial uses. For example, the proposed GCSC designations could allow up to 22,870 square feet of floor area for a combination of residential and commercial uses, such as 10 1,000 square foot dwelling units plus 2 ADUs and a 3,000 square foot office, along with parking if required and landscaping. Your attachments 3 and 4 of your staff report provide comparison tables of allowed land uses and development standards between the R2 and SC zone districts. So for the sequence of events, tonight we are here at the Planning Commission, a public hearing. The purpose of it is to make the findings required to recommend action to the City Council on the general plan map amendment and zone reclassification. And then after that, there'll be a City Council public hearing to provide the Planning Commission recommendation and also provide the City Council the required findings analysis, which is going to be it's going to be the same as what's in your staff report, for them to adopt a resolution at a second meeting. as well as introduce an ordinance, which is required. So I should back up. I'm sorry. The resolution would be for approval of the general plan map amendment. And then in order to approve the zone reclassification, an ordinance will need to be approved. And so as part of the ordinance adoption process, you have to introduce a bill and then adopt a bill. So the first meeting will provide the analysis and required findings to adopt the resolution and introduce the ordinance for the zone reclassification. Then at the second city council meeting to approve the project, they'll adopt that resolution, as I said, that makes the findings to approve the general plan map amendment, as well as adopt the bill which adopts the ordinance essentially for the zone reclassification. And that way, when both are adopted at the same time, the general plan map amendment and the zone reclassification will become effective at the same time. So based on the analysis in the staff report, staff does believe that required findings can be made. Therefore, we recommend you hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution making required findings and recommending the city council adopt the Pearson Properties General Plan Amendment and zone reclassification. I have a suggested motion when you're ready, but I'll stop screen sharing. And myself and Principal Planner Kristen Getz, as well as Kristen Kenyon and the applicant are available for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to invite commissioners to ask questions or make comments of any of the dearth of planners that we have to ask.
And one, have we had any quarterly amendments in this cycle, or is this the first? Okay. And also this is part of a land exchange, right? So the stuff on where the existing office is there any plans for changing the zoning or land use on any of those lands?
There is not at this time. It will remain SC and GC.
Okay, thanks.
I feel like I ask a remedial question at least once a meeting, and I'm sitting here with three planners, and all of that audience is planner, and you're probably smarter than I am too, sir. So here goes my stupid question. When a particular development is planned, does it come back to this commission? Or is it likely to not come back here?
It proceeds with what the intended use is, multifamily housing and an office use that is principally permitted. So it would just go through the building permit process and potentially design review for any new structure over 500 square feet would need design review. So it would not come back to planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Normally, if there's any opposition, we usually get an email or get people coming. Have nothing has been received, I assume, on this?
No comments.
Okay. Could you just bring up the map again and just show us the residential housing that could possibly be impacted by this land exchange and designation change to SCGC from MDR?
Would you like the kind of more up close version or the far?
Yes, please. Okay. Yeah. Just kind of the immediate neighbors is what just want to have a peek at.
I'm sharing right now. I think I can make it larger. There we go. So it's this site right here.
Right. There's a fence. And where will the entrance be to that new property?
Most likely from the alley.
Okay.
I believe this is the lot that's often used during campaign season for
lots of signs. Okay. And could you just scooch over to the existing location? I can see part of it. Can we see any more of it?
Right here?
Yeah.
This is my mouse. Yeah, I can go to, let's see, slideshow. So there's the purple. Those are all the Pearson properties as part of the land exchange. Oh, there we go. So there's the yellow circle for the office. And
the area just outside of the purple is is that protected riparian area or?
Right here, it's steep slopes.
It's just steep. Okay, over 20%. Okay.
And belongs to the city of Eureka.
Oh, I see both of those. Okay. Thank you. That's all I needed to see.
Okay, great.
I actually have a question on that same slide since it was up, and this is outside of the scope of this project, but I am curious. There's another parcel directly to the east, yeah, and I'm wondering if the applicant or the staff is willing and able to answer, is that one owned by the same applicant, and is there a similar plan to rezone that property?
I don't think so, but I would have to have the applicant confirm that. I don't think it's under the same ownership.
Okay, because that seems like another potential good candidate for a similar request.
Yeah, unless it's been recently purchased by the current applicant, I believe somebody else owns that property.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, we can have extended discussion in a minute, but I'd like to hear from the general public on this first.
Yeah, we aren't affiliated with the ownership of the other parcel that you had questioned. We used to own it. We sold it a while back. As part of this parking lot project that we're working with the city on for the parcels that you saw in purple, part of that obligation is they weren't going to need or use the building, and it was going to get torn down potentially. And it was my grandfather's office, Ernest Pearson, and I just didn't want to see it torn down for sentimental reasons and perhaps historic reasons. So the goal is to move it across the alley as quickly as we can because we have a limited amount of time to, vacate the property. And as part of that, we would either occupy it as an office until we find a permanent location for our corporation yard and everything else, because our corporation yard is kind of there too. And then at that point, once we find another location, we may continue to rent it as an office and build some multifamily around it, or convert it to a couple of units and add some more multifamily. So, it's kind of in flux. But the idea is to save the building and not tear it down. So to do that, I need a place to put it, and that's the closest place I can find that we own or that is likely to own. So anyway, so that's kind of the overall purpose of what we're trying to do to accommodate the exchange torn down. Any questions for me beyond that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Commission discussion?
And just for the record, I don't see anybody on the Zoom who is wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you. No members of the public on the Zoom. Planner Castellano, could you bring up the motion?
Sure, yes. Let me get there.
Yeah, and while she's doing that, I guess I'll just say that this parcel has been vacant for a long time. I appreciate the desire to retain the office, as it is an important part of local history, and the desire to build housing also seems supported, especially by the council who approved the petition. I had no issue with the findings either, so I'm comfortable moving forward.
Yeah, I was surprised. At first glance, before I read the staff report, I thought this was problematic potentially because we might be losing out on housing potential by going in a different land use category. But in fact, it seems like there's greater flexibility and density. And I think we can't really count on what will come. We got a little sneak preview, and there'll probably be some, further refinement as they find a final resting place for that building or integrate it into a larger development. But I think I'm comfortable independent of how it's developed just because of the flexibility that it affords by the changes that are being requested. And it's also contiguous with those same land use designations, so it's not a huge stretch from my standpoint.
I'll just say I'm comfortable with it as well. In the big picture, it seems to work well in terms of the uses that are there nearby. I'm supportive of the big picture that the swap is trying to achieve. So, and I have no questions.
Okay. Would like to hear a motion. Someone would like to make it?
Yeah, I'll make it if we're good to go. I move the Planning Commission adopt a resolution making required findings, and I further move we forward a recommendation to the City Council to adopt the Pearson Properties General Plan Amendment and Zone Reclassification for the vacant property located at the northwest corner of Fairfield and West Harris Streets, APN 008-052-011.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions, none. Motion carries. Congratulations, and thank you for the work you do in this community. Okay, that was our only new hearing, and there's no old business or new business, and so we can move right. Let's see, we're going to hear a report on the Gulches and Greenways update.
Hi, this is Kristen. I don't have much of a update. We're still working on the mapping, but we are planning on, once we have a draft map ready, putting it on our web viewer GIS so people can zoom in and out and look at it in detail. We're also thinking that so that we can constantly adjust the map as needed. It might not be what we bring for adoption, and instead it's a list of APNs and potentially an overlay zone or something like that ends up getting adopted by council instead of a map. So those are the main updates at this point.
Thank you. Just a question. In seeing just APNs without a visual of the Greenways and Gulches area that's designated to be that, do you anticipate any problems with that? Will people still be wondering if they are in or out, or what part of their?
We'll still have the map, the draft map. I'm just thinking that map wouldn't get adopted by City Council when it's final, and instead it would be the council would be adopting the list of APNs. But yeah, so I think the map will still exist and be available for people to look at.
Okay.
So the concern was raised that if council adopted a map, then it seemed a little odd for the director to have the ability to change that map that council had adopted. So we were kind of thinking if we adopted the list of parcel numbers that, your parcel is potentially affected, then field investigation would show whether or not the Gulch and Greenway ordinance would apply and how and where.
That makes a lot of sense, to be able to do the assessment on a parcel by parcel basis, and you don't have the time to do that to create a map of that level of accuracy. I get that. Yeah. Any other questions from commissioners?
I guess just on this point, I'm always leery of maps for I think some of the reasons you mentioned, Kristen, because they do tend to, kind of box you in and be hard to revisit. And I guess, I forgive me, I've already forgotten last month's meeting, but does the ordinance structure identify a methodology for establishing? Yeah, and so is there a way that the ordinance could exist so that regardless of whether or not something is formally mapped, it would be governed by the provisions because of the characteristics of the land in which a property is located?
Correct. The draft ordinance has a textual definition, like wetlands, streams, and buffers from them, and steep slopes, and that's what controls, regardless, and it explains regardless of if you're on the map or not. If you meet that definition, you're in the area, and if you don't meet that definition, you're not in the area. So it's the textual definition that controls how the draft is written, at least.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. I just couldn't remember, and that sounds good. And yeah, maps are helpful though for getting the word out and helping people see what the concept is. Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
So just so I understand, you could be 3 houses in from the Gulch slope. You might still fall under the Greenways and Gulches ordinance.
So there's a definition of Gulch Greenway, which is these vegetated gulch areas, and the textual definition currently starts with any land within or adjacent to those areas with these features, so that it's not any steep slope in the city. It's got to be along Cooper Second or the Gulches of Martin Slough. So the intent is not to apply beyond those areas. But I will definitely circle back and make sure that's what it actually states.
Thank you. Understood. Well, we appreciate getting an update and look forward to more as that develops. Yes.
Okay, so I had a couple of things I just wanted to share, Commissioner Communication. One is, I believe Principal Planner Kenyon sent out the invite, I guess you could say, for the opportunity for the Planning Commissioner training in October. I'll bring it up again in September, but just wanted to remind you, it's going to be a really good opportunity. I'm definitely going to go, and it's put on by the Institute for Local Government, and they're excellent. And then the other thing is I went to the Waterfront specific plan meeting. I was very impressed. I'm really excited to see that come forward, and thanks staff for all the work they're doing on that.
So, Mr. Chairman, speaking of the Waterfront specific plan, wanted to bring to your attention this evening that the website and the survey are up. And if you want to take a picture of the QR code, feel free to do so, or the website address is there. We, as Commissioner Freitas mentioned, had a meeting last week to gather additional information on what will be included in the specific plan. And at some point in time, probably at your July meeting, we'll be coming forward to you with a presentation on where we are, where we're going, timeline, that kind of thing. So just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
Thanks so much, Commissioner Freitas and Principal Planner Getz. We look forward to hearing more about that. Are there any other reports or communications? All right, I guess that just moves us straight to adjournment. And we don't need to make a motion for that, correct? Okay. Good night to all.